Hollywood was once convinced that every popular young adult novel could be turned into a guaranteed blockbuster. Well, they were wrong. From post-apocalyptic cities on wheels, to dragon disasters to vampire academies, let's dive into the spectacular flops that killed many promising franchises. Mortal Engines. The massive success of The Hunger Games and Twilight made studios look for the next best thing, and Mortal Engines was supposed to become one. The idea of giant predator cities on wheels that roam the post-apocalyptic Earth was wild, and the story of a scarred girl named Hester was mysterious and exciting. Together with a young historian, she got thrown out of the rolling city. The two have to team up to survive in the wild, all while uncovering a conspiracy. There were actually 4 novels in Philip Reeve's book series, which means plenty of source material for sequels. Visually, the movie was quite spectacular, with a cool steampunk vibe. So why no franchise? The simple answer, Mortal Engines was a box office bomb. It was released during a crowded holiday season and had to compete with highly anticipated titles like Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, and Aquaman. The plot felt a bit clunky too, and the characters were a little thin.
Were any fans of the books before?
I hadn't read the book. I don't know about you guys.
I hadn't read the book either. No.
I read it right after the first audition. But...
Although the cast features some now beloved names like Regé-Jean Page, Robert Sheehan, and Hugo Weaving, it wasn't convincing enough to draw crowds. The movie cost around $100 million to make and didn't even earn back half of it. So the studio quietly shelved any sequel ideas, and Mortal Engines rolled into the cinematic graveyard. But it's not alone. It's got plenty of company, including our next film on the list. The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones. The movie hit theaters just a year after the Twilight franchise ended. Based on the books by Cassandra Clare, it had all kinds of supernatural creatures, a secret society of monster hunters, and a whole lot of magic-powered brawls. A mysterious brooding guy was there too, and a girl discovering a hidden world.
I love that she's this feisty, determined, passionate young woman who also isn't afraid to cry and be confused and all the things that every young girl is.
It felt like Twilight meets Harry Potter meets Buffy. Book fans were not happy. They complained that the main characters, played by Lily Collins and Jamie Campbell Bower, were uncompelling, and that the couple had a serious lack of chemistry. Also, the world of the Mortal Instruments was incredibly dense, with complex mythology. And the movie tried to cram way too much of this lore into a 2-hour-plus runtime. Moreover, the audience was left hanging with the belief that the romantic leads were, in fact, brother and sister.
Family-friendly PG-13 yap.
That was a bit too much for a mainstream movie. Critics gave it a hard time, but even dedicated book fans were disappointed because of some significant changes to the source material. Ultimately, City of Bones grossed about $95 million worldwide against its budget of $60 million. That might sound okay, but it wasn't enough to justify the marketing costs. A sequel, City of Ashes, was already announced, but the studio quietly scrapped it after the first film's reception. However, the story got rebooted as the Shadowhunters TV series. It never reached the popularity of shows like Game of Thrones, but found a passionate, loyal fan base. Shadowhunters lasted for 3 seasons, including the 2-hour series finale. This allowed most of the major storylines to wrap up, even if some of them felt a bit rushed. Before we go on, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks are the best way to support the channel and see more content like this. Divergent. Veronica Roth's novels were incredibly popular, selling tens of millions of copies worldwide and dominating bestseller lists. The first movie of the series, Divergent, was a huge success. It had dystopian Chicago, teens sorted into personality factions, and Shailene Woodley as the special one who didn't fit in.
But ultimately what drew me to this movie and what I think will draw a lot of people is that it's very metaphorical to things that are happening today, and that takes you on a roller coaster of emotions through the characters' experiences, but yet you can also relate to.
Divergent pulled in $288 million globally on an $85 million budget, so the sequels were greenlit immediately. Insurgent also did well at the box office, making around $297 million. But from there, the franchise went downhill fast. Here's the kicker. The final book was supposed to be split into 2 movies, Allegiant and a planned finale called Ascendant, and that was clearly a mistake. Fans started losing interest while critics were already out. but both agreed that Allegiant was a confusing, poorly paced mess. It was a total financial disaster, making only $179 million globally, a number that barely covered its production budget. As a result, the studio announced that the planned fourth movie, Ascendant, would be a TV movie instead of a theatrical release. However, the cast, including Woodley and Theo James, basically said, "Yeah, no thanks." And the movie series literally died mid-sentence. But what about a franchise that didn't even get a chance to take off? Eragon. Based on The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, it had all the necessary fantasy ingredients: a farm boy hero, a wise mentor, an evil empire, and a shiny blue dragon named Saphira. There were 4 novels in the series, and the first one soon made its way to the big screen. Eragon was supposed to be the next Lord of the Rings, but failed for a few key reasons. First, the movie tried to squeeze a massive 500-page book into just 2 hours. The pacing was so rushed that considerable parts of the story were chopped out, and major character arcs were completely lost. The CGI looked pretty dated even for the time, and the world building that made the book so special was barely there. Still, Eragon's box office wasn't a total disaster. With a budget of roughly $100 million, it earned $250 million worldwide. But it still underperformed for a movie meant to launch a big fantasy franchise.
Will we be seeing you as Eragon again?
I hope so. I'd like to think so.
Alas, the sequel plans were quietly buried. However, rumor has it that Disney Plus is planning to reboot Eragon as a live-action TV series. After all, that saved yet another movie flop. The Golden Compass. An adaptation of Philip Pullman's beloved fantasy series, His Dark Materials. It seemed like a guaranteed blockbuster. The movie had a $180 million budget, a star-studded cast, led by Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig, and talking animal sidekicks.
I will serve you in your campaign until you have a victory.
Visually, gorgeous. Financially, not so much. The film cut out a lot of the novel's darker, more controversial themes. But rather than keeping everyone happy, it pleased no one. Book fans were furious that the story's core critique of organized religion was watered down, and religious groups still protested the film as being blasphemous. To make things worse, the movie ended on a major cliffhanger without any real resolution. It actually felt like half a story. The audiences who were unfamiliar with the books felt unsatisfied, to say the least. With a massive budget of around $180 million, The Golden Compass flopped hard, making only $70 million domestically. And although it did well globally, all plans for a franchise were shut down. Thankfully, a decade later, it got another shot as a TV series. The show, called His Dark Materials, adapted all 3 books from start to finish. This time, they didn't shy away from controversial themes and managed to provide a slow-burn mystery. Plus, a nice budget helped make the world of daemons, armored bears, and flying witches feel real and epic. His Dark Materials proved that the story wasn't unadaptable. It just needed a format that was enough to do it justice. However, that cannot be applied to all of the teen franchises. Vampire Academy. The movie was an obvious attempt to ride the Twilight wave, but with more snark and political intrigue. The story, based on Rochelle Mead's popular series, follows Rose, a half-vampire bodyguard, and her best friend Lissa, a vampire princess. But at the time of its premiere, the big young adult fantasy boom was winding down, so the timing wasn't favorable. The movie was headed by Mark Waters, who also directed Mean Girls, and it showed. Vampire Academy tried to mix teen comedy with supernatural drama, which confused everyone. Some even thought it was a full-scale parody.
That is Christian and Lissa, and they have a forbidden love, but it's there and happening, and so real.
No wonder that the book fans hated it. The box office was so bad that the sequels never even got to a script stage. Flash forward to 2022, Peacock rebooted Vampire Academy as a TV series. The show was darker, more faithful to the books, and actually got some decent reviews. Unfortunately, hardly anyone watched it. It was canceled after 1 season, staking the franchise once again. But sometimes, round 2 is where the magic happens. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This should have been Harry Potter with Greek gods. Rick Riordan's 5 books were funny and clever, and packed with adventure. Sadly, the movies were loosely based on those novels, with emphasis on loosely. The first film, The Lightning Thief, had a great cast, including Uma Thurman and Pierce Brosnan, and the leads, played by Logan Lerman and Alexandra Daddario. However, the movie lacked the humor and heart that made the books work, which was a huge turnoff for original fans, especially since so many key plot points were missing. Moreover, the main characters were aged up. In the first book, Percy and his friends were 12, while in the film, they were already 16. It killed the coming-of-age arc, and, more importantly, it messed with the prophecy that the entire story was built around. As if it wasn't enough, a considerable part of a $95 million budget was spent on big-name actors. So some of the most epic scenes from the book were simply dropped to save money. The Lightning Thief made a respectable $226 million globally and was soon followed by a sequel.
Yeah, it was definitely a good day when I got the phone call that we were gonna make it.
But Sea of Monsters made less than the first movie, helping sink any plans for a third. And that wasn't even the biggest problem. Rick Riordan, the author, was famously and very publicly against the films. He didn't even watch them, saying the script chewed up his story in a meat grinder. When the creator himself waves a giant red flag, fans take notice. Also, the lead actors were way too old to play the teens. By the end of the second film, Logan Lerman was about 21, and Alexandra Daddario was 27. Ultimately, the third movie never went into production. The good news? Disney Plus gave Percy a fresh start. The series first aired in 2023, with Season 2 coming this December. This time, the adaptation actually sticks to the books. The author is involved in its development, the characters are of the right age, and both fans and critics are calling it the true adaptation they've been waiting for. So sometimes, you have to let a franchise crash and burn before it can rise from the ashes. Or, in Percy's case, climb out of the river Styx. Do you agree with our picks? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more videos about your favorite franchises.